Hello, David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. I got up at 4 a.m. this morning. I didn't want to. My mind was worrying. When that happens, I can't shut it off. I just get up. I usually get up at 5, but this was early. Made my cup of coffee, got the Nespresso going, smelled it, let it bloom, took a sip, sat down on my computer, and oh, that's right. There was the official James Bond podcast around No Time to Die debuted this morning. And I thought I would give a quick, very visceral initial review. I mean, it's 5:15 a.m., which is why I'm sort of half whispering, so I don't wake anybody else in the house up. But I wanted to give a quick review because I sat down with my cup of coffee and for 36 minutes listened to the entire podcast. I didn't multitask. I didn't surf the web. I didn't look at other pictures. I just focused on the podcast because I really wanted to see what this was all about. Now, it's only a couple days ago that we actually had the teaser that came out around this. You probably saw the video like I did on YouTube. It had all the different individuals from the Bond production talking about it. James King, who's done BAFTA events and other things, was hosting this podcast. I did a little bit of research on James King and the Podcast Foundation itself. I think we all did. Like, what is this? What's going on? There may have been a couple traditional podcasters out there in the Bond community that were slightly disappointed.
And welcome one and all to another episode of the Being James Bond podcast, the oldest, the longest running, and the most well-known James Bond podcast of all time.
Welcome to No Time to Die, the official James Bond podcast. It's the 25th Bond film, and this series will give you unrivaled behind-the-scenes access. We'll hear from Daniel Craig on getting the role.
I'm very, very aware of the legacy of these films.
That it wasn't them. But anyway, it debuted this morning. All right, so what do I think? Well, first of all, let me talk about all the different aspects. A lot of excitement, well produced. I mean, like anything, I think in the Bond franchise, extremely well produced around this movie. And that says a lot because this is going to be a 6-part podcast series. This was obviously the first outside of the introduction of it. I thought James King was great, but it was almost like a variety show. When I'm used to podcasts, I'm used to kind of people delving into certain topics, really getting into the meat of it. This was what I would call a high-flying strafing. You talk to the writers, and there's a couple of little quotes. You talk to Daniel Craig, and there's a quote or two. It's very high level. Now, that being said, the level of discussion, there were some things that I really liked about it. First of all, I love that they talked about certain things that we talk about as fans. First of all, tropes. Daniel Craig confirmed that he really embraces the James Bond tropes, that he takes it very seriously. And that was the conversation I was hearing from Craig a lot, is that he takes this very seriously. He understands what the fans are looking for. A theme we need to talk about in this podcast, because this is something that I'm going to be very frank here and transparent, I don't typically hear nowadays in the Bond franchise, is the fan community. This was really paying deference to the fan community. I think there was at least 6 or 7 moments in the 36 minutes where they referenced what the fans like, that they want something different, but they don't want Bond to be different. I mean, I heard that quite a bit. If you do too much of a different Bond, it's not Bond. I think I heard that at least 2 times from both the writers and Barbara Broccoli and just everybody involved, it seemed. So it seems like if we take them at absolute 100% value of what they're saying in the podcast, that we're not going to get a wholly different James Bond. They're of course going to kind of keep it fresh. I mean, that was all part of it. I did also like what Barbara Broccoli was saying with a couple of the things of, the whole idea of paying homage from the books themselves, borrowing things from the books. And I'm curious if they actually take moments from the books and apply it there. They know the fans like that, but I think it works. I mean, Fleming, that's the foundation of everything I've heard her say, and I've heard other people say it as well. So I heard that loud and clear. And Barbara, I think, was very well spoken. I think she kind of dominated the confidence that I heard in this podcast of what was being laid down for this movie. Daniel Craig, like I said, was very good. I think the writers, interspersed with different things. Who I thought really shined in this, where I thought he did a great job before, but really shined in this podcast, was Cary Fukunaga. I mean, I think the director reaffirmed some of the things that I've been seeing and wanting, the things that he's visiting, even the Blofeld aspect. I'm like, all right, how's he going to handle this question about Blofeld coming back? Yes, he was in prison, he was in jail. I think he didn't want to leave that like a hanging chat out there, and that was kind of the answer that he gave. But it was thoughtful, and I think that it was tinged with a lot of confidence and consistency too, from what we've heard, which was really good. The podcast overall, to me, didn't deliver anything earth-shatteringly new. There wasn't like a moment where I'm like, oh, this is going to be the thing that everybody talks about today. It was kind of a reaffirmation. If I was to sum up the podcast in kind of that overarching umbrella-like feeling, it was almost like a comfortable blanket, a fleece blanket that you kind of curl up and go, okay, this is very reassuring and warming. Meaning, I didn't hear anything that made me go, did they really just say that? No. But on the other hand, it was comfortable, which I kind of want to be comfortable with Bond. And I know that sounds a little bit traditional and old-fashioned, but I don't want Bond to be so different. And such an experimental take on it, this late in the tenure of Daniel Craig's Bond movies. I want it to be a wonderful completion of things, but I also want my Bond movie. I want the mission. I want him to, have that, kind of pithiness and snarkiness and sarcastic nature that we love about him. We want him to be fallible, right? We want him to be an anti-hero that we all find is just very approachable. Yeah, he's a superhero, and they talked about the hero aspect. But isn't that all, kind of our fantasy of having that heroic moment, those larger than life moments, and being able to get away with it, and being capable. We always talk about that capability. So those different, I'll call them tropes, were connected to in the podcast. 36 minutes came and went. I think James King as a host was great. I didn't think he was able to shine. I'm hoping he, as a personality, if he is to represent the fan, if he's to represent Joe Public, I hope he has a moment to kind of interact back and forth, as opposed to being almost the tethering of different synapse. What do I mean by that? Different quotes. You need that connection in 36 minutes from one to another, so it makes sense, so it tells a story. And I'm hoping he's just not the connective tissue, that he actually gets to, be like, hey, what does that mean? Or, can you describe that? This was a great introduction. I'm actually looking forward more to, when they talk about costume design and locations and stunts, because that's just kind of the tidbit stuff, the candy that I want to consume. Big question is, are they going to give us something that's really, I don't want to say explosive, but just teases things out a little bit more? I know they're scheduled to actually deliver to us an excerpt of the Hans Zimmer music. I don't think the trailers have had Hans Zimmer music in it yet. I think it's trailer music, which is fine. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the Hans Zimmer interpretation. It's probably one of the top things I'm looking forward to. And also, Siderat's, the costume designer, because, clothing brands, but again, yeah, I thought it was great. I don't think, again, nothing earth-shattering. I think comfortable, confident, reaffirm some things, and I think it's off to a good start. So once a week now, literally once a week, we're going to be getting one of these. So we'll chat about these, and go check it out for yourself. Anyway, been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience, and we'll see you all real soon. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.